Hi, everybody. Welcome back. If you haven't been in this group before or attended a live, every Wednesday we have a Facebook Live to help you to understand emotional intelligence so that you can help your children to understand their emotions and develop their emotional intelligence. So my name is Deborah McPhillamy. I'm the founder of this group. I'm a trainer and an author and a speaker. If you haven't heard of me before or haven't met me before, so I'm very, very passionate about emotional intelligence, and it's something that I've been practicing and developing and helping hundreds and hundreds of people on a global basis to develop their emotional intelligence for the past 18 years. So today's Facebook Live is all about how your children's emotions create their mental health problems. So if you're new to emotional intelligence, I want to explain to you what it is and how your emotions have everything to do with absolutely every single thing you do on a daily basis. Now, we're all born with emotions. We can't deny that. It's just within us. They're there for an absolute reason. They're not there to be suppressed or ignored, which has happened a lot in the past. But I want to explain to you a little bit more about where your emotions come from. So your emotions come from your senses. So whatever you see, what you hear, what you taste, what you feel, all of that information comes through your senses. It creates a thought, the thought creates a feeling, and the feeling creates emotion. Now, the difference between feelings and emotions is that feeling is something that you feel, and the emotion is the energy of that feeling. That is what inspires action. It inspires what we're going to do with that thought and that feeling that we have. So if you think about, babies when they're born, they cry when they're hungry, they cry when they're wet, they cry when they're sad, they cry when they're unhappy, they cry for any kind of reason. But it's their expression of what they are feeling at the time. So if you think about emotions, think of them as energy, but also as a language. They exist to express what is going on in your mind and your thoughts and what you are feeling. So if you are uncomfortable, you're going to want to express it, and you express it through your emotions. So emotions are very, very, very important, and we never want to deny them. We never want to suppress them. We never want to ignore them, because they've got incredible information within them. They're like your very own GPS system. So if you think about, when you use your GPS in your car or you use it on your phone, your emotions are your own human GPS system. They keep you safe. They tell you when there's something wrong, when you're feeling ill, with whatever is going on in your life. So if you think about intuition, right? So our intuition is something else that we were born with, but a lot of people haven't learned how to develop their intuition. And the reason why people aren't often able to recognize their intuition is because they can't differentiate between their intuition and fear, because they feel sort of similar. Or if you haven't learned how to speak the language of emotion, you're going to find it quite different, or find it difficult, should I say, to differentiate between intuition and fear. But they're all part of the intelligence of your emotions. But you're only going to learn to differentiate when you learn how to label them and express them. So how do your emotions create your mental health issues or mental health illness? Now, when you have emotions or when you have feelings that come from your thoughts and you don't do anything with it, what happens is it creates a cycle. It's almost like a stuck record for those of you who are old enough, in the same age bracket as me, or maybe a little bit younger. Remember, we used to get those LPs, those records, before you had CDs. So if you think about a record and it gets that scratch and then it gets stuck and it gets on a loop, then the record can't go any further. It creates this loop that it is stuck on. Now, Emotions do the same thing. Now, every single one of us have traumas in our life. So let me explain to you a little bit about trauma. So trauma can be anything from a child not getting a lollipop that they really want when they're 2 years old, or maybe they lost their teddy bear, or maybe mom or dad shouted at them, or mom and dad didn't come when they were crying through the night and they were just left crying for hours and hours and hours. That creates trauma. Now, the same thing as when you get older. When you're older and maybe you were bullied at school, or your friends stopped playing with you, or you had a breakup when you were a teenager, all of those constitute traumas. So some of them can be seen as mini traumas, and some of them can be seen as big traumas. So for instance, if a parent died, or if you had a divorce, or those are big traumas, right? But trauma is trauma, and your emotions are affected by trauma. So what happens is, if you haven't learned how to express the trauma and the feeling that you felt from that, or how it affected you, then it's like a stuck record. It's like your brain it gets stuck on a loop, and it doesn't forget that trauma, whether it was a mini trauma or a big trauma. It doesn't forget it, because it just gets suppressed, and it's almost like gets put into your memory somewhere. And until you learn how to alleviate that trauma, you are going to react based on that trauma over and over and over again. Plus, it's going to keep generating thoughts. So when you have a feeling and a thought, they work in conjunction together. They're very connected. So your mind and your emotions are incredibly connected together. So if you think about, let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, as a 9-year-old, somebody said to you, you're fat, you're ugly, you're weirdo, whatever way you perceived it. And if you believe the person that said something nasty to you, then that's when it creates that hook, like that record, right? And then that hook creates that thought, and eventually it creates a belief. So you believe what they said, and then that belief sinks deep down into your unconscious mind, and it keeps creating these thoughts over and over and over again. But what then happens as well is that thought then creates another thought and another thought and another thought, and then it gets blown out of proportion. So say, for instance, you think the kids don't want to play with you, just like I said, because they've called you names or something. Then you start thinking, I'm ugly. Oh, nobody wants to play with me. I'm not good enough. Oh my gosh, I'm so shy now. I'm so embarrassed. I don't want to go out because I'm so lonely, because nobody wants to play with me, because there's something wrong with me, because I'm ugly. I'm not acceptable. And that's how the loop happens. That's how the stuck record gets stuck. Or should I say, how the record gets stuck, and it plays over and over and over and over again in your mind and in your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions. And even if you don't know it's there, it's always running in the background like a program. So think about your phone or your laptop or something, right? We have hardware, and it has these programs that you put onto your laptop. So these downloads. So it's exactly the same way. It just runs in the background. You don't even know it's running, but you know how you can tell when it's running? Based on your actions, based on your behavior, based on whether you want to do something or not, or when your child suddenly becomes isolated and they're constantly putting themselves away in the room, suddenly they become anxious, suddenly they become sad, they don't want to go play anymore, they become weepy, they start wetting the bed again. That's when you know something has happened and something is stuck, like a stuck record or a scratched CD, and your child can't move forward because of what has happened to them in the past. Now, this is where it gets really frustrating, but I want to give you hope before I move on to say that this is where it gets frustrating, because you can turn this around. This is why I've dedicated the past 18 years of my life to what I do and what we do at EQ for All and Getting Kids Social Again, because we know and we have formulated and tested and tried and used the process, and you are able to turn this around. So I'm just going to come back to the point where I said where this gets frustrating. Because why it gets so frustrating is because unless you know how to change that, and unless you start paying attention, that is something that is going to keep you stuck in your life for the rest of your life. Because your mind has got this weird responsibility, this weird role that it plays. Your mind exists to keep you safe. That's it. So when you've been hurt in the past, like when somebody called you a name and you believed them, or you decided that the divorce ended because of you, or because your parents shouted at you and you made it about you and not about them having a bad day, that is when you believe them. That belief becomes a program that runs in the background. So what your mind does and says, oh my gosh, I remember that event that happened when I was 9 years old. That really hurt me, or really hurt you as a person, if I'm talking about it as the third person, yeah. And therefore, my job is I don't ever want her to get hurt again. So I'm going to keep her safe. I'm going to keep her, I'm going to hold her back from putting herself into situations again, going out there again, because I don't want her to be devastated again. So that is what's frustrating about the mind, even though it's incredibly powerful and you can use it for so much good and to change your life and to completely turn your life around. Unless you know how to do that, it's going to keep you stuck. It's going to keep what it perceives as you being safe. Now, I hope this is making sense to you. And if it is, please just, send up your emojis, comment, ask some questions, because I'm happy to answer questions at the end of this video. But even though, and I've said this before on how many trainings and talks that I've done, even though the mind and the brain is incredibly intelligent, it's also got this weird default, this weird defect. You can almost call it a defect because it doesn't see the difference between reality and imagination. So all that information, all those traumas, all those events that happen to you stay here. They never ever go away. They can trace them back as far as when you were in your mother's womb. So because the brain works in images, it stores that information. And of course, the feelings are the voice of your unconscious mind, which is more than 90% of what our mind is made up of. So it constantly wants to keep you safe until you reassure it and tell you, and you're able to reassure your own mind and say, well, actually, I am safe. I'm an adult now. I don't need to keep myself away from situations because I can deal with those situations on my own. But unless you know, and unless you become aware of how your mind works and pay attention and observe your actions and the words you speak and the thoughts you often have and the feelings you have, you are going to stay stuck. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. So I'm going to switch over now to a PowerPoint presentation, or just a PowerPoint, just to show you a few little things or a few benefits of becoming emotionally intelligent, just so it gives you more of an idea why there is nothing more important, in my opinion, to teach and develop emotional intelligence in children and, in fact, every person's life. And here's the beauty about emotional intelligence: you're never too young and you're never too old. These are skills that you can learn from the age of 8 months and upwards. You are never too old to learn about your emotions, your behavior, how your mind works, the psychology of who you are, because you can turn it around. And when you have that information, let me tell you something, your life changes beyond belief, absolutely beyond belief. You will feel like a different person. It will change your friendships, your relationships. But anyway, I'm getting carried away. So let me just go to the PowerPoint slide that I just want to share with you, just to show you some of the benefits. First of all, to show you some of the problems that we're having in the world today, specifically around children, and then also to show you some of the benefits of how to develop emotional intelligence. So for those of you who've only just met me for the first time, Just want to share a little bit on these logos. Yeah, so Getting Kids Social again. I founded this non-profit organization, and I just love this logo. It's just so beautiful. And then I'm the co-founder of EQ for All, which does the same thing. It's just that Getting Kids Social again sits in that structure, sits in the UK. EQ for All sits in South Africa. And then I'm the creator of the Bears of Blueberry Forest, who are our ambassadors that help children to develop their emotional intelligence. I thought I'd just quickly share that with you. Okay, so this is a great description I've already explained a little bit about the science of emotional intelligence and what it is, and how it's actually created in your brain and in your body. But I just want to put in a nutshell what emotional intelligence is very much about understanding, accepting, validating, and being in charge of your own emotions. So this is not about controlling your emotions. You don't need to control your emotions. You need to understand them and be able to express them. Okay, so I want you to understand that, because we never ever want to control our emotions, because it's all about, when you control your emotions, it's something that you're trying to suppress and ignore and get rid of. But when you have become emotionally intelligent, you become in charge of your emotions, which means that your actions based on what you're feeling or on that emotion will not be out of control. Okay, so I hope you understand the difference. Now, accepting and validating other people's feelings and exercising empathy, because it's very important not only to understand your own feelings and emotions, but if you really want to work and connect with the people in your life and the people that you work with, then it's important for you to understand their feelings and emotions as well, and to develop empathy, because empathy is all about being able to get into somebody else's shoes, to imagine yourself being in somebody else's shoes or in their situation. Now, in my mind, my opinion, once again, is that the biggest problem in the world today is that there's not enough empathy, because if you had empathy, there wouldn't be violence, there wouldn't be conflict, there wouldn't be abuse. So empathy is a massive, massive, very important aspect of emotional intelligence. So you're just broken down about what makes up the fundamentals of the developing emotional intelligence, and it's about awareness. So self-awareness about your own actions, about your own behavior, self-regulation. So we want to regulate our emotions. We want to be able to self-soothe, know how to express them. Self-regulation is a massive part. Motivation. Now, specifically intrinsic motivation. Now, intrinsic motivation means that you don't need somebody else to motivate you. You can motivate yourself because you have purpose in your life. You have joy in your life. You have fulfillment in your life. So when you understand what your purpose is or what you want to do, you have intrinsic motivation, which means you don't need a coach or anybody else to kick you up the butt to motivate you in life. You're able to motivate yourself, and this is a massive part of the fundamentals of emotional intelligence. And it's great, isn't it? Because you can even teach this to children so that they become intrinsically motivated. Now, empathy, I've just mentioned empathy. Social skills. Now, social skills is a massive part, and I keep saying massive part because all of these are actually, the one is not more important than the other one. But social skills is all about friendships. It's about relationships. It's about, as an adult, your sales, your being with your colleagues, running a successful business. Social skills is everything. When you get married one day, when you have children one day, all of that falls into social skills. And you can only really, truly develop good social skills when you understand yourself, when you understand who you are, when you understand how you function, your mind, your emotions, your feelings, how to express them, how to speak it. All of that makes up social skills. So if you don't have good social skills, you're going to struggle in life. You're really going to struggle in your relationships, and you're going to struggle with your career or your job, because we all need social skills, right? And then the third fundamental of emotional intelligence, and we are the only company that actually teaches this. If you look at all the other companies that teach emotional intelligence, none of them touch on environment. But environment makes up such a big part of how we interact with the rest of the world, and how we behave in the world. So think of environment as in your body's environment. So whatever is going on within yourself. So it could be things like what you're eating, what you're drinking, your hormones, the chemical makeup of the part of your environment of your body. But it also has to do with the environment that you live in, the environment that you work in. So your home, where you live, the part of town that you live in, the city that you live in. You know, there's even things like noise, color, Wi-Fi. There's a lot of things that make up your environment, and all those aspects of your environment can make you feel either unsafe or uncomfortable, depending on what's going on. And that is going to affect your emotions, and it's also going to affect the way you behave. So it's going to affect your children's behavior. So often we don't know why kids are acting out, and they're acting all weird, and they're uncooperative. Their environment, I can almost say, is more than half of the reason of what goes on with kids, because of the noise, because of the relationships of the adults in the house, because of what they eat, because of the way a teacher treats them. So environment makes up more than half of what constitutes, or should I say, what contributes to a child's behavior and to their actions and how they're feeling. Okay, so some of the world issues that we currently are struggling with, or that is going on in the world today: bullying, a massive, massive problem in the world with bullying, virtual bullying, in-person bullying, with children, with adults alike, lack of social and life skills, diminishing communication skills. People have become very introverted, and a lot of that is because of screens and because of texting. So, you know, communication skills have diminished terribly. Anxiety, a massive problem. And specifically now, because of COVID, people are feeling really anxious. ADD, ADHD, diabetes, technology, obesity, violence and conflict, lack of time, stress, pressure, overstimulation, addiction, lack of common sense. Even common sense is gone. And once again, because that's due to technology, because things being done for people, they don't know how to do it themselves, because a lot of your everyday life skills have diminished because of technology, because of robots, because of bots that have taken over a lot of our duties. And then, of course, all of that has contributed to the growing mental health issues. So I want to show you a few of the benefits of being emotionally intelligent. And I hope you can see the screen, because it might, my video, hopefully, is not blocking some of that. But basically, benefits of being emotionally intelligent. And now, emotionally intelligent is a process. We've created the most incredible, interactive, fun, simple, easy to use process that we use in our academy. It's what we teach our tutors. It's what we teach our teachers, to follow this process of developing not only their own emotional intelligence, but the people in their life's emotional intelligence, and the children that they work with, your own children, or the children that you teach. But we've created an incredible process, a system, a step-by-step process to develop emotional intelligence. And it is super effective. It's a lot of fun. And as I said, it's really easy to use. So basically, the benefits of being emotionally intelligent is to improve and build stronger relationships, get along better with friends and family, improved social skills, which means you're able to make friends easier. It helps with all relationships. The ability to concentrate more, which gives you increased academic achievement. Now, think about it this way. How that works is, if you're emotional, you can't focus on anything else, right? Because you are focusing on that trauma or that event that happened that makes you feel emotional. So when you know how to deal with that, and you learn how to deal with that quickly, easily, and effortlessly, you're then able to concentrate more. Because if you don't deal with it, you can't focus, you can't concentrate, because all you're thinking about is that emotional event or that emotional trauma. Make sense? Okay, so the ability to self-motivate, which I mentioned, you're able to make healthier choices. Now, how that happens is that when you learn to love and accept yourself for who you are, you learn to build your own self-worth, self-value, which is all what we do in the process of becoming emotionally intelligent. You then suddenly start treating yourself better, which means that you help make healthier choices. You go, no, I don't want to do that, or no, I don't want to be mean to that child because my friend is doing that. No, I don't want to eat that food, which I know is going to affect me. I'm rather going to choose something else. So you learn to make a lot more healthier choices for yourself, and children learn to do that as well. It improves your ability to problem solve. So basically, in the skills that we teach when you become emotionally intelligent is that you suddenly become aware of, once again, making those choices, but we also give you the options of how to switch on your problem solving skills that most of us actually have. Because I mentioned in the previous slide, and I said that there's a lack of common sense. The lack of common sense is because we've allowed other things, apps, people to make our decisions for us. So we teach how to problem solve again. So to switch that back on, to switch the common sense aspect of us back on, because we have it. We're inherently born with this ability, but it's just been switched off and made us lazy as human beings because we have all this technology and all these apps. Calculators, think about calculators. I mean, when I was at school, I remember we had to learn how to count, we had to learn how to multiply, to divide. What are children given today? A calculator. They don't know how to just do maths without an app or without a device. And that's why common sense has been diminished, but we teach how to switch that on again. Right. Reduces violence and conflict. As I mentioned, that comes from developing emotional intelligence, and then increased impulse control. Now, this is really interesting, is because you can teach people what is your long-term benefit versus a short-term, how can I put it? Short-term satisfaction. So in today's day and age, think back to when we were children, you would have to wait for something to happen. And I'm going to use TV as an example. There wasn't on-demand TV. You had to wait for a week before you could watch the next episode of your favorite series. Today, you get it on demand, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Netflix, whether it's on whatever your choice of platform that you use for TV. So children have learned that they can have things on demand. Amazon, another one. You order it today, it's here tomorrow. Sometimes in the UK, you still get it the same day. So you don't have to practice impulse control. So we teach children that sometimes we've got to control that for long-term benefit. So it's short-term sacrifice for long-term benefit. Okay, going to the second slide. Okay, so the second page, I'm just going to run through really, really briefly, because tomorrow I'm going to talk about how developing your emotional intelligence will alleviate this. So I don't want to go too much into this, but I'm just going to run through them because these are the benefits of being emotionally intelligent and developing your child or the children that you teach or work with emotional intelligence. So it reduces stress, improves health, creates emotional resilience, and builds resilience and the ability to bounce back, which we all know we really need so much of that now while this pandemic is still going on. It builds self-confidence and healthy self-esteem, reduces and prevents bullying, teaches self-awareness. So a lot of people call that being mindful, encourages children to live in the moment, improves general sense of well-being and overall happiness, teaches children to be more independent and self-reliant, encourages a positive mindset and healthy emotional development. It also helps with defense mechanism, which acts in a preventative context, for example, to combat obesity, diabetes, and anxiety. So all of that very similar to the previous slide, but tomorrow I'm going to explain a little bit more about that. And I'm also going to be sharing some actual stories from our tutors of their case studies, my case studies over the years, just to show you a little bit more the incredible benefits of developing children and your emotional intelligence. And before I go, just to let you know that if you are watching this on YouTube or if you're watching it on one of our other Facebook pages, then please do join the group. It's called Emotional Intelligence for All Children. That's where all the questions get answered. You can ask anything you like. If you're stuck with something, if you need a bit of advice, you want to know more about emotional intelligence and how you can teach your children or the children in your care, then please come along and join that group. But tomorrow's video is about how developing or your child's emotional intelligence alleviates their mental health issues. So once again, my name is Deborah McPhillamy. Thank you for tuning in, and I will see you again in the next segment of how developing your child or a child's emotional intelligence alleviates their mental health issues. And that will be again tomorrow at the same time, 3 o'clock British Summer Time. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you then. Bye for now.